Here we're going to use the II Plus to calculate the present value of a series of mixed cash flows, and in this case we have to use the cash flow registers on the II Plus. And this is a little more complicated, so I'm going to go a little more slowly with this than with some of the other ones. So what we need to do is enter into the cash flow register. It's like a little baby miniature Excel program inside of it. So you hit the CF button there to get into the cash flow registers. And once you've hit that, you really ought to clear everything out to make sure that there's nothing left over from some other problem. So once you've hit the CF button, do second clear work, and that makes sure that everything is cleared out from previous problems. All right, so the first thing we want to do is we want to enter that initial cash flow of negative $100, so 100, change sign. Notice this is CF0, and now it's saying enter, and so let's hit enter. And now once you've hit entered and it's got that little arrow there, that means that that number is actually entered into the register. Now, this little up and down arrow means that you can go up and down and identify all of the cash flows that you're looking at. So I'm going to hit the down arrow, and now I'm going to enter cash flow 1. In this case, cash flow 1 is $10, so 10. And now I'm going to hit, it says hit enter here, and so I'm going to hit enter. And now I'm going to use my down arrow, and typically I don't use this frequency button. F01 just means the frequency of cash flow 1. If we had like $10, $10, $10, and then some other cash flows later on, we could do a shorthand and enter all three $10 and have a frequency of 3. But I usually just enter them all in individually because it avoids errors. So frequency, I almost always leave at 1. So I'm just going to use the down arrow. It's already entered as 1. Notice there's that little triangle. It's already entered as 1. So now cash flow 2 is 60. Now it's telling us to enter it, so I'm going to enter it. Use the down arrow. The frequency 2 is 1, and it's got the little enter, it's already entered, so I can use the down arrow. Cash flow 3 is 80. Enter. And now I go down, and the frequency 3 is 0. And just to be sure, just because I want to make sure, I always go down a couple more cash flows just to make sure. It says cash flow 4 is 4. We don't have a fourth cash flow. We don't have a fourth frequency. So everything is as it should be. Let's go ahead and page through it and look. Cash flow 0 is negative 100. Cash flow 1 was 10. Cash frequency 1 was 1. Cash flow 2 was 60. Frequency 2 was 1. Cash flow 3 was 80. Frequency 3 was 1. And then we don't have a fourth cash flow, and we're done with all of that. And now what we'd like to do is we'd like to calculate the present value of this. In order to calculate the present value, you hit the NPV button, and it's going to ask us what the interest rate is. Well, the interest rate is going to ask us to enter that. The interest rate or discount rate is 10%. Now we're going to hit enter. All right, and now as we do our down arrow, it's going to tell us to compute it. Notice it says compute, hit the compute button. We hit compute button, and it says that the NPV is 18.78. So the present value of negative 100 and then 10 and 60 and 80 is 18.78, and that's a positive number, which means that the net present value of that series of cash flows is a positive number. Now, just to illustrate why you need to clear all of this out when you start a new problem is this. Suppose we started over. I've cleared everything, and suppose you've even cleared all sorts of things. You've cleared work, and you've cleared the time value of money. You've done everything that you think you ought to do. We can do it several times. And now as soon as you enter the cash flow register again, all of that stuff is still there. All of that stuff is still there until when you're in the cash flow register, you do second clear work. Now, once you've done second clear work, you look at it, everything's gone, which is the way you'd like it to be.